life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. This profound reflection by Søren Kierkegaard invites us to dive into the depths of human existence. Today, we embark on a transformative journey, exploring the 7 life tests that we all inevitably must face. Imagine standing before a complex labyrinth, where each turn represents an existential challenge. As we progress, we'll discover not only the obstacles that await us, but also the tools to overcome them. Prepare to question your deepest beliefs and expand the horizons of your consciousness. Our first stop on this philosophical odyssey is the search for life's meaning. This timeless enigma has intrigued humanity since the dawn of consciousness. Why are we here? What's our role in the vast cosmic theater? These questions echo through the corridors of time, challenging us to look beyond the veil of everyday existence. Friedrich Nietzsche once proclaimed, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." This powerful statement resonates with the urgency of our quest. Nihilism, the belief that life is inherently meaningless, lurks in the shadows of our consciousness. But it's precisely in this apparent void that our greatest opportunity for growth resides. Consider for a moment, what if life's meaning wasn't something to be discovered but rather created? Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and founder of logotherapy, argued that finding meaning is the primary motivating force in humans. Through his experiences in concentration camps, he observed that those who maintained a sense of purpose had better chances of surviving the most extreme conditions. But how can we create meaning in a seemingly indifferent universe? The answer might lie at the intersection of our passions, talents, and the world's needs. Imagine an artist whose creations inspire and elevate the human spirit, or a scientist whose research opens new pathways for curing diseases. Each of us carries the seed of a unique purpose, waiting to blossom. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre proposed that existence precedes essence. In other words, we're born as blank canvases, and through our choices and actions we paint the picture of our lives. This existential freedom is both a gift and a burden. We're the authors of our own story, but with that authorship comes the responsibility for our choices. As we face this first test of life, we're invited to embrace uncertainty as a catalyst for growth. The search for meaning isn't a linear journey, but a continuous process of discovery and rediscovery. Each experience, each relationship, each challenge overcome adds a new layer of depth to our understanding of what it means to be alive. Moving forward in our journey, we arrive at the second test of life, confronting mortality. This existential challenge puts us face to face with the inescapable reality of our finitude. As philosopher Martin Heidegger said, "We are beings toward death," and it's this awareness that distinguishes and propels us. Imagine standing before an hourglass, watching the grains fall inexorably. Each passing moment is irretrievable, a silent reminder of our transient nature. This knowledge can be paralyzing, but it can also be the key to living a more authentic and fulfilling life. The fear of death is a natural response deeply rooted in our psyche. Epicurus, the Greek philosopher, argued that this fear was irrational. While we exist, death is not present, and when death is present, we do not exist. However, overcoming this fear isn't a matter of logic, but of lived wisdom. Accepting our mortality can be one of the most powerful catalysts for personal growth. When we become aware that our time is limited, we're compelled to make more conscious choices, to prioritize what truly matters. As the poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Death is the side of life that is turned away from us." But how can we transform this awareness into a positive force in our lives? The answer might lie in the practice of memento mori, an ancient philosophical tradition of contemplating one's own mortality. Far from being morbid, this practice invites us to live each day as if it were our last, not with fear but with gratitude and intentionality. Consider the impact this perspective could have on your relationships, your work, your aspirations. How many times do we postpone our dreams, put off important conversations, or lose ourselves in trivial worries? The awareness of death calls us back to the present, reminding us that each moment is precious and unrepeatable. The philosopher Seneca advises us, "You must live for others if you want to live for yourself." This apparent contradiction invites us to reflect on the legacy we want to leave. How will our actions and choices impact the world after we're gone? This perspective expands our understanding of meaning beyond our individual existence. However, it's crucial to find a balance. Living constantly in the shadow of death can lead to anxiety or nihilism. The challenge lies in integrating this awareness in a healthy way, using it as motivation without allowing it to paralyze us. Death also teaches us about the impermanence of all things. This understanding can lead to a deeper appreciation of life's ephemeral beauty. Like cherry blossoms in Japanese spring, whose beauty is intensified by their brevity, our own existence takes on a special glow when viewed through the lens of mortality. As we advance in our exploration of life's 7 tests, we arrive at a particularly subtle and persistent challenge: the struggle against the ego. This aspect of our psyche, as necessary for our survival as it is potentially limiting to our growth, presents us with a fascinating paradox. Imagine the ego as a distorted mirror, reflecting an exaggerated and often illusory version of ourselves. It's through this mirror that we often interpret the world, our relationships, and our own worth. As Carl Jung observed, the ego is a complex of data that constitutes itself primarily through a general perception of our body and existence, and subsequently through memory records. The ego plays a crucial role in our survival and development. It helps us establish boundaries, protect our integrity, and navigate the social world. However, when unchecked, the ego can become a prison, limiting our perception and hindering our spiritual growth. Consider for a moment, how often are our decisions motivated by the fear of appearing weak, the desire to impress others, or the need to be right? These are manifestations of the ego in action, often distancing us from our true essence and potential. The philosopher and mystic Eckhart Tolle argues that the ego is the source of much human suffering. He writes, "The ego isn't who you really are. The ego is your self-image. It's your social mask. It's your role. It's who you think you are. It's a character you play. And when you know this, you can start to free yourself. But how can we transcend the ego without completely denying it? This is the crux of the challenge. The key might lie in developing self-awareness and practicing detached observation of our thoughts and emotions. Techniques like mindfulness meditation allow us to create a space between our observing consciousness and egoic thought patterns. Buddhism offers valuable insights on this journey. The concept of anatta, or non-self, invites us to question the solidity and permanence of our identity. By recognizing the fluid and interdependent nature of our existence, we can begin to loosen the rigid structures of the ego. However, it's crucial to understand that transcending the ego doesn't mean annihilating it. It's more a process of integration and balance. Like a delicate dance, we learn to use the ego as a useful tool without completely identifying with it. This struggle against the ego also opens us to a deeper understanding of our connection with others and the world around us. As the barriers of the ego dissolve, we experience a growing sense of unity and compassion. As the poet Rumi expressed, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." As we progress on our journey through life's 7 tests, we arrive at a challenge that deeply resonates with the human spirit: the quest for authenticity. In a world saturated with social expectations, cultural pressures, and carefully constructed masks, finding and expressing our true self becomes a Herculean task, but one that's profoundly rewarding. Imagine standing before a magic mirror, capable of reflecting not just your external appearance, but the essence of who you truly are. What would you see? What layers of social conditioning, fears, and false beliefs about yourself would need to be peeled away to reveal your authentic self? The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre argued that man is condemned to be free. This existential freedom places us before the responsibility of creating ourselves through our choices. But how can we make authentic choices in a world that constantly bombards us with expectations and prefabricated definitions of success and happiness? Psychologist and philosopher Erich Fromm observed that modern man has become alienated from himself, from his fellow men, and from nature. This alienation is in large part a result of our struggle to fit into social molds that often don't resonate with our true nature. The challenge then becomes recognizing and dismantling these external influences to discover our authentic inner voice. Consider for a moment how many of your beliefs, desires, and aspirations are truly your own, and how many are echoes of family expectations, social pressures, or dominant cultural narratives. The journey to authenticity begins with this deep and often uncomfortable questioning. The Greek philosopher Socrates left us a timeless piece of advice: know thyself. This philosophical imperative is at the core of the quest for authenticity. It involves a courageous exploration of our deepest motivations, fears, passions, and values. It's a process of self-discovery that requires brutal honesty and a willingness to face aspects of ourselves that may have long been repressed or denied. But authenticity isn't just a matter of self-knowledge, it's also a practice of self-expression. As the poet and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." This act of living according to our inner truth, even when it goes against social norms, requires courage and conviction. However, it's crucial to understand that authenticity isn't a fixed state to be achieved, but an ongoing process of becoming. We are beings in constant evolution, and our authenticity must be flexible enough to accommodate our growth and changes. The quest for authenticity also presents us with an intriguing paradox. How can we be true to ourselves while remaining open and adaptable to the world around us? The philosopher Simone de Beauvoir reminds us that one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. This perspective can be extended to our search for authenticity. We are not born authentic. We become authentic through our conscious choices and actions. As we advance in our exploration of life's 7 tests, we arrive at a universal and profoundly transformative challenge: confronting suffering. This experience, so intrinsically linked to the human condition, places us before fundamental questions about the purpose of our existence and the nature of reality. Imagine suffering as a stern but wise teacher, appearing in our life not to punish us, but to offer deep lessons about compassion, resilience, and the transient nature of all things. How can we learn to hear the hidden messages in our pain without succumbing to despair or resentment? The Buddha, in his first noble truth, declared that life is suffering, dukkha. This statement, far from being pessimistic, is an invitation to look squarely at the reality of human existence. Suffering in its multiple forms, physical pain, emotional loss, existential frustration, is an inevitable part of our journey. However, the real challenge isn't in avoiding suffering, but in how we respond to it. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and founder of logotherapy, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." This perspective invites us to see suffering not as an end in itself, but as a catalyst for personal growth and transformation. Consider for a moment, what were the moments of greatest growth in your life? Often, we discover that it's precisely the periods of difficulty and pain that have forged us, that have made us stronger, more compassionate, and wiser. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche famously declared, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." This statement captures the essence of suffering's transformative potential. When we face adversities with courage and awareness, we develop a resilience that transcends the immediate situation, preparing us for future challenges. But how can we find meaning in our suffering without falling into the trap of masochism or self-pity? The answer might lie in the practice of mindfulness and the cultivation of equanimity. By observing our pain with compassionate attention, without judgment, we begin to create a space between the painful stimulus and our response to it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us, "It's not things in themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about these things." This perspective invites us to examine our interpretations and reactions to suffering. Often, we discover that much of our anguish comes not from the situation itself, but from our resistance to it. The Buddhist tradition offers valuable insights on how to deal with suffering. The practice of compassion, both for oneself and for others, can transform our relationship with pain. By recognizing that suffering is a universal experience shared by all sentient beings, we can develop a sense of connection and solidarity that transcends our individual pain. However, it's crucial to understand that finding meaning in suffering doesn't mean glorifying it or actively seeking it out. It's more about developing the capacity to be present with our pain, to learn from it, and ultimately to use it as a springboard for spiritual and emotional growth. As we advance in our journey through life's 7 tests, we arrive at 2 interconnected and deeply transformative challenges: the practice of unconditional love and the integration of duality. These tests invite us to expand our understanding of love and transcend the limitations of binary thinking, paving the way for a higher and more unified consciousness. Imagine unconditional love as an inexhaustible source of pure water, flowing freely without discrimination or expectation. This love, described by many mystics and philosophers as the essence of our true nature, challenges us to love without attachment, without fear, and without judgment. But how can we cultivate this form of love in a world marked by divisions and conflicts? The Greek philosopher Plato, in his Symposium, describes love as a quest for completeness, a journey to reunite what has been separated. This perspective invites us to see love not just as a feeling, but as a conscious practice of reconnecting with our divine essence and with all beings. Consider for a moment, what would it be like to live each day with a completely open heart, offering compassion and acceptance to everyone we meet, including those we consider difficult or even enemies? This is the radical challenge of unconditional love. The Christian mystic Meister Eckhart said, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me." This profound statement reminds us that unconditional love isn't something we do, but something we are in our deepest essence. The practice then becomes a process of removing the obstacles that prevent us from expressing this loving nature. However, as we delve deeper into the practice of unconditional love, we inevitably encounter the challenge of duality. How can we love unconditionally in a world that seems divided between good and evil, right and wrong, light and shadow? Here, we encounter the test of integrating duality. This challenge invites us to transcend binary thinking and embrace a more holistic understanding of reality. Psychologist Carl Jung spoke about the need to integrate our shadow, the denied or repressed aspects of our psyche, to achieve wholeness. Imagine reality as a complex tapestry, where each thread, light or dark, contributes to the beauty of the whole. The integration of duality asks us to recognize and honor both the light and the shadow in ourselves and in the world, seeing them not as opposites but as complementary aspects of a greater unity. The Taoist philosopher Lao Tzu reminds us, when people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. This perspective invites us to question our rigid categorizations and seek a more fluid and interconnected understanding of reality. The practice of unconditional love and the integration of duality intertwine in profound ways. As we expand our capacity to love unconditionally, we discover that the divisions we previously perceived begin to dissolve. And as we integrate the seemingly contradictory aspects of our existence, our capacity to love naturally expands. As we approach the end of our exploration of life's 7 tests, we're invited to reflect on how each challenge interconnects, forming a rich and complex tapestry of growth and transformation. From the search for meaning to the acceptance of mortality, from the struggle against the ego to the quest for authenticity, from confronting suffering to the practice of unconditional love and the integration of duality, each test offers us a unique opportunity for expanding consciousness and deepening wisdom. Remember, these tests are not obstacles to be overcome, but portals to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe. As we face each challenge with courage, compassion, and curiosity, we not only grow as individuals, but contribute to the collective evolution of human consciousness. And so, we conclude our journey through life's 7 tests. But in truth, this is just the beginning. Each day offers us new opportunities to practice, learn, and grow. May we continue this exploration with open hearts and curious minds, knowing that each step in our journey is sacred and meaningful. Until next time.